What's the worst cheating story you've ever heard? Story 1. First time, to my knowledge, my stepmom cheated was in her car in our church parking lot with a guy staying at the church-owned house, which at the time was being used for recovering addicts or something of that sort who were being rehabilitated and going to church. Then with the same dude went to the park down the road with my stepsister tagging along, and either my stepsis stayed in the car and they screwed under the dyno stairs, or they screwed in the car and my stepsis chilled under the dyno stairs. Can't remember that last detail for certain. Second time she cheated was with somebody work-related, I believe, and she ran off like an over 6-hour car ride to another state where the guy she was cheating with that time had a shared property with his mom. Craziest part is that time I really thought my dad and stepmom were done for good because it seemed that way. But they're back together again and happy. So whatever. Not my relationship. If they're happy, then let it be. Love makes people blind. Both parties have cheated before, but here they are still married 7 years as of this New Year's. Story 2. There were two couples, both MF, let's call them M1/F1 and M2/F2, who lived next door to each other in my neighborhood growing up. They were best of friends and were always at community events and concerts together. Everyone knew that the two guys were best friends and the two ladies were best friends. One day the gossip starts, and we find out that M1 and F2 were cheating together. Apparently they're in love and are going to divorce their partners to be together. Their whole friendships fall apart and M1 moves F2 into his house and kicks F1 out. She considers getting an apartment, but since M2 is just next door and they're both going through the same crap, he offers to let her move in and they'll be roommates. You can see where this is going. Fast forward 6 mo's and M2 and F1 have become more than roommates and are now in love. Divorces have been finalized and M1 and F2 are having their wedding. They cautiously invite M2 and F1 as an olive branch and surprisingly they accept. They slowly begin rebuilding their friendships and soon M1 and M2 are best buds again. F1 and F2 take a bit longer but eventually get back to being best buds. M2 and F1 get married about a year later and have M1 and F2 as their best man and matron of honor. All is hunky-dory again, just with switched partners and switched houses. How do I know this? All 4 of them loved to drink and talk at the town gatherings, and their drama was public knowledge. I've since moved out of that neighborhood, but everyone is waiting for the same thing to happen again, and another switch, or else they all just enter some kind of poly relationship. Story 3. Me, 26M, did not cheat. I delivered to a large retailer, not going to say which one. I delivered to this retailer for 2 years before finding out that a 29F employee who helped me with my area wanted to have sex with me this whole time. She told her friend everything. Then her friend spilled the beans to me. I am engaged and have a child on the way. She is married, has one boy 2 years old, and is also pregnant with another on the way. I was pretty shocked that someone would just throw everything away for me. She also knew of my engagement and asked, "Are you just marrying her to marry her, or do you actually love her?" I guess I should have known then. Story 4. Crazy cheating story I ever heard of is this. There was one guy who was in relationship with some girl. They were in relationship, long one, but after some time she died and had a funeral. After many years, guy's phone rings, he picks it up, and there is other dude on the phone telling him that his GF didn't die. He told him she left him, went to the other country with him, and that funeral was all made up to make him believe she died. He just said thank you for telling me this and showing me all the proofs, but don't ever call me again. Craziest shit ever. Imagine making up entire funeral. Story 5. My immigration lawyer told me a story about a client who blew the whole thing. He had moved to America and gotten engaged to a woman. They were going through the green card process based on their impending wedding. They had the interview for the green card scheduled for 2 weeks away and had spent a considerable amount of time and money on the process. She came home and found him in bed getting railed by some dude. Story 6. Ooh, I have a proper fucked one from a friend. She has a child and did not want her pregnancy. Her abusive boyfriend was begging her to have the kid, and she knew due to past complications it would be hard for her to have a vaginal birth, but he pushed for one. Family is all at the hospital. The OBGYN nurse is delivering her baby, touching it and, spiritually being in her space with her son. Her boyfriend had been cheating on her with that nurse and all of his family in the room knew it. Fucking disgusting. Story 7, buckle up. This is a ride. My father took my brand new husband and I out to dinner the day after we got married. To preface, we were on our honeymoon in a town about an hour away from where my parents lived and my hometown. I had been pretty scatterbrained before the wedding and had left our toiletries back at my parents' house on accident. My father insisted on bringing them to us and taking us out to dinner. So we met up, and after dinner in a place that was packed with people, my father chooses this is the best time to tell us about his mistress. He then proceeds to tell me not to tell my mother, that the mistress has the successful children he never had, and when, for whatever crazy reason, that didn't make me congratulate him, he tells me my groom knew about the mistress. At this point, I go from complete devastation to being absolutely pissed. My husband had no clue what he was talking about, and I was gobsmacked by the news. It turns out, my father had gaslit my husband and myself for over a year leading up to this. I think he thought I would be on his side. He was very, very wrong, and he knew it. The look on his face when he left said it all. He had fucked up majorly. The next day, all I could do was stay at the bed and breakfast we were honeymooning at and vacillate between screaming and crying. I didn't know what to do. If I called my parents' house, I could tell my mother, but then my father would know. I was in a fucking hellhole of what do I do? That night, my husband and I get into a fight because we are so stressed about this atom bomb that landed in our wake. We ended up going out to a nice meal where I just kind of cry and move the food around on the plate. Afterwards, we went to Walmart to get some things, and a familiar feeling of not being able to breathe infiltrated my body. In total denial anything was wrong, we go back to the bed and breakfast and my lips are turning blue. Fuck, not this again. I knew what it was but didn't want to accept it. As we drove to the small hospital in this tiny town, I was trying to breathe but couldn't. I started crying in the waiting area to get triaged. I remember the room looked more akin to a veterinary clinic. The only thing separating me from the patient next to me was a single bed sheet hung up in a very ramshackle way. That patient had diabetes, by the way. So we find out my oxygen is down in the 80s, which is not a good situation. Definitely explains why I had been so scatterbrained. Have to make the hard decision late at night to have me take an ambulance back to the town my parents live in because it's equipped with a hospital that can handle the vast amount of blood clots in my lungs. And I need an ambulance just in case I die on the way there. They can revive me. It's the best bet. As my carriage with sirens awaited to take me around literal mountains back to my hometown, I had to say goodbye to my husband, and he had to go back to an empty room, pack everything up, and hope by the time he got to the hospital that I was still alive. This had happened once before, a few years earlier. I had bilateral pulmonary emboli, aka every artery in both sides of my lungs were clogged with blood clots. I had what was referred to as a saddler that somehow made it in through my heart, when the size of that particular clot is supposed to stop the heart. By all means, I should have been dead, but I wasn't. And here I am, another really bad set of clots, hoping my heart will withstand them, because at any moment a clot can go through your heart, get caught in between, and make it stop beating. Blood clots are called silent killers for a reason. When I am coming out of the ambulance, my mother had met me at the ambulance bay with my youngest sister. Once I was in a room, I had to tell my mother. I waited for my sister to leave and spilled everything. I told her she had to divorce my father due to his mistress. She was devastated. It was also surreal. Within 48 hours, I had gotten married, been told by my father about his mistress, and now was in the ICU, not knowing whether I would survive the night. I was in the hospital for over a week. Once I got out, I received a text from my father that just read, "Is there anything you want to tell your dad?" Meaning, I know you told your mother what I told you not to. I replied, "Yes, I have survived yet again." His reply, "Oh, boo-hoo." Yes, boo-hoo. My parents divorced shortly after. One day, my mother's lawyer got a phone call from my father's purported mistress's daughter's lawyer. This piqued my interest, and since I have a background in investigative practices, I decided to peek into my father's mistress. That's when I found out that yes, she did have successful children, except one of them drove drunk and died in a pretty horrific accident, leaving his mother nearly $2 million. The alleged mistress also had full-blown Alzheimer's. When I looked even further, I found out her daughter had moved her mother, the mistress, into a living care facility for Alzheimer's patients. She had moved her mother to live near her, which was in a totally different state. She had also sold her mother's house, as is and below cost. It was sold as is because for some reason, a woman without her mental faculties had apparently decided out of nowhere to remodel her entire home with my father's personal tastes and likes. I am unsure if the woman started out as a mistress or was never a mistress. I do know that my father preyed upon a woman whose mind was not in the correct state to make decisions. I think he was remodeling a home to his likeness and knew she was going to die and wanted the money she had locked up from her son's demise to himself. And he almost got away with it. Happy to say I am still married, I'm no contact with my family, and I am really happy that way. But that year was really difficult. The mistress died within less than 2 years of my finding out about her. I've often wanted to contact her daughter to figure out what the hell happened, but I don't want to open old wounds or hurt anyone or make anyone mad. TLDR. My father told my husband and I about his mistress on our honeymoon, while I was quite literally dying and didn't know it. Come to find out, she may not have been his mistress because she had full-blown Alzheimer's with a big bank account attached. Story 8. The following was told to me directly by the girl. Not a typical cheating story, but still unbelievably fucked up. Girl and guy are dating high school freshman year. It's been a few months and it's going along fine. They meet up one night and do the deed. At first with protection, but the guy begins to complain that he can't feel it. Not wanting to ruin the mood, she reluctantly agrees to do it raw if he promises to finish outside. He doesn't. They clean up and the guy heads home. The next 24 hours, the girl gets extremely paranoid about getting pregnant and is desperately trying to find enough cash to buy Plan B. Her mom was a bad mood apparently, so she couldn't ask her for help ATM. I'm not sure if she was asking around for money or if this next part was completely unrelated. But one of her friends texts her requesting nudes in exchange for cash. The girl is completely not thinking straight now and going full panic mode, sends the nudes. She uses the money to pay for the Plan B. A week later, her and her boyfriend are together again, and he can feel that something is off, so he sneaks into her phone and finds everything. As he confronts the girlfriend, she breaks down and begins ugly sobbing as the boyfriend records it. The entire scene is posted to social media to the entire school with all the context and evidence of the nudes and cheating. The girl becomes a social outcast and dumping ground for insults and jokes for a few months. During that time, I talked to her once and she remarked that she had been high on drugs every day to keep on going. You can decide where the moral compass points here. Story 9. I told the story on Reddit a couple times, but during deployment we had a soldier join us mid-tour after he graduated AIT and did some pre-deployment training. Great young soldier. He was chatting on AIM regularly with his wife, that he moved into post-housing before deployment. He also chatted with his MP neighbor now and then in post-housing. One day the neighbor told him some guy was living with his wife, wearing his clothes and driving his car. His ex-wife and other man planned for him to move in for over a month before her ex-husband deployed. She met the other man playing WoW. My friend was able to get all their IM records because the wife used Trillian, which kept a log of IMs. His sister had a key to the house and drove 5 hours to post-hosing and literally staked it out waiting for the wife and her boyfriend to leave. The sister took photos of the disgusting house. All they did was sit and play WoW while ordering food. She bought new furniture on credit and a poor dog that was shitting everywhere and eating the new furniture. They had these 2 gaming stations with Alienware towers. His sister took photos of everything and took the gaming computers. That is how they got all the chat logs. In the logs, the ex-wife said something along the lines of hoping her ex-husband was killed so they could get the insurance money. She also deleted their WoW characters. That led to death threats that got the other man banned from post. The ex-wife absolutely gutted him financially. But the judge ended up passing almost all the debt she ran up on credit and her student loans to her. I still remember driving him about a dozen times to the JAG office. The Army takes spouses and family needs seriously, and you can get in trouble not giving them enough to sustain themselves. Still the most heartless shit I have ever witnessed. Story 10. Tulder, my GF, 15, cheated with her friends and my stepdad at the time, 24. I was 15. I was in my first relationship when I was 15. For a backstory, I'm 14. This was the first woman I had ever seen that made me forget everything around me and just stare blankly. She was so beautiful. And for the next year or so, I tried my hardest to get her to go out with me. Throughout that time, watching her flirt and date other dudes, even some friends, was disheartening, but still I just wanted to be with her. One day, January 25th, 2017, while waiting to go home, I asked her to go out with me and she said yes. Yippee, I thought. Boy, was I so wrong. Turns out a few weeks before on New Year's, she was sleeping with my best friend and was still in a relationship when she agreed to be my GF. But I didn't find this out until March on spring break. Then again, the same week she told me about New Year's, she cheated on me for the first time with her friend from her hometown. Completely blindsided, I was overwhelmed with rage and confusion and whatever other emotion I could have felt. But for some fucking reason, I couldn't let her go. I had invested so much passion and love into this that I just wouldn't give up. Funny, I'm just a kid, but who's keeping tabs? Fast forward into June 2017, my mom and her BF weren't on good terms due to time and job conflicts, being on different schedules, etc. And so he was taking me and my GF to band practices early in the mornings. And I started to notice a weird friendship between them. Almost too much, but not enough for me to say anything. Till one morning he's up and out of the house earlier than usual, so I call and see what's going on, to which he says, "Oh, I've just gotten some cigarettes before getting y'all to school." Red flags were just waving, but I swallowed my pride and continued on. Now July, we are at a Renaissance festival camping out. My curiosity has overcome my trust, and I check her phone. When I go to Snapchat and check her friend's profile, my mom's BF username is there, and it's a woman's Bitmoji. So I bring it up, and then I get shamed for being controlling and paranoid. Big surprise. Early 2018, he turns himself in for what he had done. From June to October 2017, they were having sex in my mom's car, at her parents' house, the high school parking lot, and not a single person believed me until it was too late. He was 24 and she was 15. There's more to the story, just don't want to type it out. This isn't the only person she slept with that's 24 while she was 15. 311. My former file announced to my Emile that he'd cheated on her with a mutual friend, and she was pregnant. Mile couldn't have kids. Hubby and his sister were fostered. He left and got in his car and backed out of their driveway, running over the family dog. Still left after that to go to his cretin of an AP. Those two deserve each other. It would just have been better if they didn't break family hearts first. To add, Mile died of cancer a couple of years ago. She spent her last month or so with Exafil and AP. Though they were supposedly all good now, AP is just a horrible person. She helped Mill to the loo once in the last days when she was too weak to walk, and just left her there on the toilet and went upstairs to bed. We cut contact with that couple when AP kept treating hubby's special needs sister like a dog, including using a squirt bottle on her and tricking her into eating dog food and then bragging about it online. Story 12. I know a couple who recently got divorced. A couple years back, the woman's father was getting close to the end of his life, so she was spending a lot of time in another state taking care of him. While she's caring for her dying father, her husband ends up cheating on her with an escort, which turns into a long-term affair. He buys all sorts of things for this woman over a short period of time, to the point where he's getting new credit cards and taking out loans to pay for it all, destroying their savings and damaging their credit. When she finally found out about it, he promised to stop the affair, but he never did. Even after she developed breast cancer and needed treatment and support, he refused to stop the affair. She was forced to divorce him before her financial situation was utterly destroyed and had to change jobs just to make enough money to keep her house without his salary. He now lives with the woman he cheated with. Story 13. This will probably get buried, but I was cheated on by my then boyfriend on the day of my dad's funeral. He actually showed up to the funeral. It was a large event. My dad was a beloved teacher with her, and from stories I heard, he was holding her hand during the funeral. To think I gave a heartfelt speech while he watched, with the girl he was cheating on me with. He never admitted to anything. His reasoning was being around me made him think about how his dad will die someday, and it upset him. He was full on serious saying it, expecting me to understand. Story 14. It's not the worst story, but it still blows my mind that he did this to me. I was with a guy for over 2 years. I am very openly poly, and the rules were very simple. 1. Don't lie to me. 2. Don't sleep with anyone from work. And 3. Let me know who, when, so I'm not worried sick about you. Instead, he started sleeping with a girl we worked with, lied to me about it, and would constantly tell me he was on his way home when he was actively fucking her, so I was worried sick about him. I was paying all his bills, buying him whatever he wanted, and supporting his crippling gambling addiction, alcoholism. I broke up with him the day after I found out and sent his ass to her. He wanted her so badly after all.